Today I'm going to share with you how to put love into action if you really have experienced love. Yes, we've had all week long sharing about God is love. It's been really precious. I've heard some beautiful comments from so many of you, and I appreciate those words that you shared. But now we come into kind of the conclusion of 5 days of talking about God is love and what's the greatest of all these things, which is love. Love. How do you put love into action? Well, I started to ask that question because I wanted to leave you in the series of these particular teachings of God is love, because I think it's the most important message we can ever share with any study, any understanding, any revelation of God is love. But how do you put it into action? Well, if it's real, if you've really taken the steps to really seek God's love, seek his character, understand what John 3:16 means, that he gave his only begotten son, and take that out of the religious lifestyle, take it out of the religious understanding, take it out of the religious knowledge that you may already have since you were a little kid, that God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. Jesus came, Jesus died, Jesus rose, and you know the story. There's another story. There's a deeper example that comes from the Gospels, a deeper example and continual expressions of this love from Jesus as he walked the earth on his human journey with a divine purpose, and that was to love. How is that? Well, let me first take you to a scripture. And the scripture I think is so important that you read with me is in Philippians chapter 2, verse 1 through 4. Let's read that together. Therefore, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, if any comfort from his love, if any common sharing in the Spirit, if any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, Christ-like, having the same love, being one in spirit and one mind. Do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value others above yourselves, not looking to your own interests, but each of you to the interests of others. In your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as of Christ. Wow. What does that say to you? If you have taken the time to build your relationship, the love affair, the romance that painters have painted, poets have wrote about, scholars have taught about, this love affair of God. If you have truly experienced and sought that out with all your heart, with all your might, as you seek, you will have found that. You have found that comfort. You'd have found that enlightenment. You'd have found that desire. And all of a sudden, it needs to be expressed. Because if it's not expressed, it becomes very easily forgotten. Oh yeah, just like marriage. I've married a lot of people in their day of marriage, went through their vows, went through their marriage, preparation. And it's an interesting study. Years later, the ones that have made it and the ones that haven't. All of them on the time of the day of their wedding, on the day of their vows, were excited and they were pumped and they loved each other and they gave that first kiss and there was the pops of surprises and sparkles coming from their eyes and from their heart. I mean, it was just magnificent love affair. All of them. But a year or years later, what takes place in a marriage, just like the marriage to Christ, my beloved and my lover, is the expression of a continuation of encounter, a continuation of intimacy, a continuation of that oneness, so that it expresses itself. Listen to me. This title is Love in Action, right? It expresses itself in how you treat others. I'm going to give you a few more scriptures because this is really an example. And Jesus taught it to Peter again and to the disciples. He talked to them about in Matthew 18, verse 21 through 35. Jesus said there was a rich ruler who had this servant that had a lot of IOUs on the table. I don't know what he did, play poker with him or what he did, but he had a lot of IOUs. He owed a ton. He most likely could never pay back. And he begged and he begged and he begged the ruler to forgive him. He'll get it. He'll pull it together somehow. He'll get it. You're like one of those movies when you're talking to the mobster that you owe money to because of the gambling debt you have. Please, the money's coming. But in turn, the rich ruler took mercy on this man and forgave him all his debt. Didn't give him time, forgave him all his debt. But this man goes out and another man who owed him a penny compared to the fortune he had been forgiven, gives this man no mercy, throws him into prison, and leaves him there because of his debt. The word gets back to the ruler, and the ruler brings this guy back in and says, I gave you mercy. I forgave you of a great debt, and you could not pass that on. You could not give that to another. And he ends up sending him to jail and prison to be tortured until he could fulfill his obligation, it says. Wow. Where does that happen in our life? Well, let's go to another example, a real example, not just a parable. How about the example where Jesus got out on his knees and began to wash the disciples' feet? Wash the disciples' feet. And Peter said, whoa, you're not washing my feet. That's just not going to happen. And Jesus said, Peter, if I don't wash your feet, this is not what you need. You need to understand what I'm showing you. You need to have this explained to you. You need to have this, what's the word? Exposed to you, revealed to you. So he said, then wash my whole body. No, he said, just your feet. So he washes his feet. And he says, now do this for your brothers and sisters. And then to take you to one more scripture, I'd like to take you to a lot of them because there's so many places. I just quoted you out of the example of the washing of the feet of John 13, verse 15. It says that I've set an example for you that you should do as I have done to you, to others. Now there's one last point of reference besides 1 Corinthians 13 that says greatest of these is love, is that Galatians chapter 5 says faith expressing itself through love is the greatest thing of all. Then he goes on in verse 14 to say the only thing that counts is love. Okay, so Jeff, you're giving me all these examples and I understand this is love, but how does it apply to me? Here's how it applies. Like it applied to Peter. It applied to that servant that got the big debt. If you've been loved, you need to allow that love to flow through you, not with effort, not with human effort, but to be so filled, as Pastor Potts once told me in my early walk with the Lord, Jeffrey, be a bucket and allow the Lord to just pour his love into that bucket. But the best way to keep God pouring that love into your bucket is, he said, poke holes in every part that you can of your bucket, your life, and let it flow out in God, who is unending in his love, is faithful in his love, and is new every morning in his mercies and love. He'll just continue to pour into that as you pour out. So he said, if you want to stay in love with the Lord, keep doing what Jesus said was the greatest commandment of all. Love the Lord thy God with all your heart, with all your might. But the second is just like it because it's the only way that it is expressed. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's love in action. So we've learned a lot about love. We've learned the scriptures, and there's hundreds more of God's love. The whole Bible is God's love letter to us. But in turn, you need and I need to take the love letter to others. And it doesn't mean to just preach at them. It means to express your love for them in simple things, in easy things, in things that may not even opening a door for someone and not going through the door because you're in a hurry first. How simple is that? It's very hard. Take the patience of holding the door open while you want to rush through the door for your own appointment that you're late for, your own objective, your own whatever it is. But to stop just for a moment and to greet that person with a smile, looking them in the eye. Would Jesus do that? I believe he would. But see, we don't see the simple things in life and where we can express love because we don't take and slow down enough and take enough time to allow God to pour into that bucket of yours and allow those holes to flow into other people's lives. So if you want love in action, get your bucket filled up and put holes in it. Get your bucket filled up by every day going to the Lord, every day speaking and dialoguing with him, every day giving him thanks, every day seeking him for your answers of life, every day. And as you see his love to always be faithful, that he's always there, he never leaves you, forsakes you, asking you always you receive that answer that you need one way or another. When you see that constant love poured into your bucket and you've got those holes in your bucket, means opportunities to love others, and you just allow it to flow, it's not a human effort because that's love inappropriately defined. True love is simply expressing, as it said in today's scripture, expressing what you have already received from him. Comfort, love, encouragement, patience, forgiveness, kindness, gentleness, goodness, all the things that God provides for you and I. I hope today this absolutely explodes in revelation. I pray that right now, that it explodes in revelation, that you and I have 1,000 or more opportunities today to express God's love that we've already received. As I have been given, I give. And as you and I do that, again, the old song that I mentioned earlier this week in this love series, what the world needs now is love, sweet love. And they don't need love sexually. They don't need love financially. They don't need love in the relationships of ways that they might think they need love. They need agape love, God's love. They don't need your love or my love because that'll fail them. Just like the marriages that I talked to you about in the earlier part of this lesson, they'll fail. But what won't fail is the love that God has had for you, that you simply reflect, that you express in every opportunity you get. Then, and only then do people really see the love of God and are so magnetized, so desiring of it, that they run to it. They're drawn to him. They don't even see you at that point. They see Christ. And isn't that the greatest goal that we have, to be Christ-like, to be a reflection of the one that has loved us, forgiven us, died for us, rose from us, made an opportunity and lives with us, and allows us to live with him forever. Have a beautiful, beautiful day and weekend. I'm back home and I'm pleased to be back home. I'm looking forward to a blessed, loving day to pour my love out to everybody that I can pour my love out into. And where there's challenges of that love, remember when you were challenged and he strengthened you, he encouraged you, he gave you hope when you didn't have hope. Pour that out today. Have a beautiful weekend. See you next week.